Welcome to Paradigm Playbook, the podcast on the business of sports. With 50 plus years of experience, Steve Cook shares insights weekly, featuring top playmakers shaping the industry. Get ready to script your next play. Now, here's your host.
Good morning and welcome to Paradigm Playbook. I'm the host, Steve Cook, along with Galen Broido, joining us from Italy. Galen is a good friend that I met through Third Level Consulting, and she works in the area of marketing, website development, but specifically has done a lot of specialty work in the youth sports and activity center business and has done websites for Third Level Consulting, contributed to the Stephen Cook website. Without me digging too deep into it, why don't you introduce yourself, give the audience a little bit of your background and what pulled you into your current roles?
Sure. First, thank you so much for having me. I always had sports in my life, and growing up, I played a lot of different sports. I think I was pretty lucky on that front. My parents wanted me to try all the sports. Gymnastics was actually the first sport that I really, really loved, and I wanted to do that pretty much exclusively, which I did. It's difficult to tell on a Zoom call or on a podcast, but I'm actually very tall, and gymnastics very quickly became apparent that probably wasn't going to be the right sport for me. And I actually kept hurting my knees. It was just a mess. I started swimming in middle school as a rehab for some knee injuries, and I ended up really, really enjoying it. So I started competitive swimming really late. I started competitive swimming probably towards the end of middle school and then taking it more seriously in high school, which is pretty out of the norm. My background in swimming is really what sort of drove my desire to keep working in the swim school industry. I ended up going to college at the University of North Carolina at Asheville. And after 4 years of competitive high school swimming, I was considering possibly not swimming in college because I was looking for maybe a way to have a regular college experience without the pressure of high-level sports. But I was very uncomfortable with quitting. So I applied to UNC Asheville because they actually didn't have a swimming program. And during the application process, they announced that they were going to start a Division I women's swim team. So my application got flagged and the coach contacted me, and it ended up being a really great decision to join the women's swim team. I was able to be a part of that team for 4 years, and in the meantime, I was working on my marketing degree. And it sort of all came full circle, actually, because when I was in elementary school, I was in two clubs. I was in a tech-savvy girls club and an art club, and marketing really blends the two of those really well. I was working right out of college. There was a medical supply company. So I wasn't passionate so much about what I was marketing. I wasn't really passionate about the product. I wasn't passionate about it at all, but I learned a lot in that first job of everything from traditional marketing to SEO to website development and a little bit of social media there. I was really lucky in that my aunt is Andy Broido, who's the industry expert on the swim school side, and she was looking for some help with swim consultant. So I was able to start working with her a couple years after I graduated college, and she taught me the ropes of the swim school industry, and it was such a breath of fresh air coming into that world because it's full of passionate people who are so inspired and they're just wake up every day excited to teach swimming and to save lives. It was just a wonderful industry to be in, and is a wonderful industry to be in. And when Third Level and Swim Consultants started working together, that was a way for me to learn a lot more about the child activity center industry and to get back into gymnastics a little bit. It's been really fun to get to know that side of the child activity center industry as well, and to meet the whole group at Third Level and work really well with the team. And so I'm still focused on marketing, websites, social media, all of those kinds of things. And I would say that in terms of on the sides of either strategy or analytics, I think that I'm more on the branding side of marketing. So that's really where I think I set myself apart. And that comes from my love of art and design. So that's generally what I love to do.
It's fascinating. Yeah, destiny has a lot to do with everything. And I think the swimming was a destiny thing for you. So that's exciting. Andy, by the way, is the founder and the head everything at Swim Consultants. Andy's been on the podcast with me before. Andy's a good friend of mine as well. But I think the background in athletics, this happens to a lot of the people that come on the podcast. They're working in the industry now, but their love for business this came from athletics and a willingness to work hard, dig in, and there's everything from creativity to discipline that you take from sports and you apply to business. So I've seen a lot of Galen's work on website design. If you don't mind, I want to dig into that a little bit first. Let me put a timeline on this. So about when were you studying marketing in college? What's the time frame of that?
So I started out as an undecided major. And so the first couple years I was taking a bunch of different classes. And then I decided about halfway through college that I would want to focus on marketing. So that's about, yeah, when that was.
When you dug into that in the beginning, websites were already a thing. We have so many people that have some skills and develop their own websites and basically get the core information right, but then don't get the benefit of it because the functionality isn't right, the compliance isn't right. Do you work both with people that already have a website and people that want to create one?
Yeah, definitely. So I work with all sorts of different clients. Some people have been in their business for a long time. Others are just starting out. Some have already created their website and they need someone to help fix it because sometimes they might work with a web developer who's maybe isn't quite, they don't know the industry, or maybe they haven't made the site up to standard. And then of course work with people who we're starting from zero to build the site. And so there's definitely a range of clients and I enjoy starting in all the different places. I can work with anybody who's interested in those kinds of projects.
So a lot of us had websites that we have basic information. It's what I call, I don't know what you call it, but like a one-page website where it's just you scroll down through it. And that's where I started. And I've owned several different businesses. And in fact, one of my businesses is still there. It's just scroll down. There's 10 pages as you go down and it jumps from one to the other. Is the first thing you look at the content or the aesthetics of, does it first have to be attractive to the eye or does it first have to be informative?
Well, I think that attractive to the eye can change depending on who's looking at it, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think that is a challenge sometimes of a web designer in general. My feelings don't get hurt if I'm designing anything and then the client comes back to me and says, this is so not what I like. I don't like the colors. I don't like the design. I don't like anything because it is so personal to that individual. So I think the first thing that I look at would be making sure that it's functional and making sure that the user, as they come onto the site, can very easily do what the company wants them to do. So if the goal is to have them sign up for a demo call, if the goal is to have them register for classes, what does that journey look like through the site? And is it easy for the user to accomplish? We also, of course, would then need to look at the actual content because it's not just about how does the company explain what their services are, what their product is, but we also have to adhere to what search engines are looking at the site for. When I was in college, I probably decided on my major in 2013 or 2014. And at that point, SEO, so search engine optimization, was very different. And they used something called keyword dumping. So you could have actual pages on your site or hidden words that would be your keywords for your website. Let's say there's a swim school in Asheville. We maybe write swim school in Asheville 1,000 times on the website, even if it didn't really make sense to the person reading it. And that would help us rank higher on Google. Well, just like how any kind of technology has advanced, search engines have advanced as well. And they recognize that's not the appropriate way to rank websites because it doesn't really mean that they're explaining what they do and it's not actually a good website for the user. And so they shouldn't be ranked first. And when that transition happened, it was pretty traumatic for a lot of websites that were doing the keyword dumping, as it was called, to have to switch and actually adjust their content. So that's some of the reasons why, for example, blogs are really great because it allows you to actually create great content that's all about your business and your industry that is actually usable and helpful to your customer while also helping you use those keywords to rank higher on search engines.
This is fascinating to me. I didn't know any of that. So how does it work? If it says the name of the school in the blog over and over again, how does that work better than just retyping the name?
So it's not so much about using the blog the same way that you would have used the website. Oh, I guess here's a good example. I was working with a client on this recently that all of their classes that were available, maybe they had levels 1 through 8 of their gymnastics classes. And they all had really fun names, such as maybe they were jumping jacks or twisting tigers or leaping frogs, things like that. And they explained the class in a way that was, children will socialize with other kids, they'll have a lot of fun, and never really use the word gymnastics or never use the word enrichment, or maybe, let's see, gymnastics classes for toddlers or gymnastics classes for school age children. And so instead of just dumping in the words that you want, that you think people may search, you have to actually integrate those words into the content that you've created on your website. Even if your class is called Leaping Frogs and it's for maybe a toddler gymnastics class or something like that, it's really important to say gymnastics class for toddlers or gymnastics course. You have to do your research of what people are searching in your area, but it's a way to really make your content better. It's kind of a gift to everybody that, the content's better for the user, and it pushes the owner or the company to create content that people would actually search for.
The deeper we get into this, the more confusing it is to me. So everybody understand that Galen and I have a very similar client base. I do a lot of work with people that want to launch a business in the Child Activity Center, or that they've been in for a while and they're at that plateau and they want to grow. They may need my help, but then they also might just need your help, and it could be a branding or a marketing issue. So the clients that you're working with that already have a website, what kind of a percentage are actually including a blog on the website?
I would say few of them are including the blog. And I think a lot of that has to do with, okay, who's going to write it and who's going to spend the time to do it. So I totally understand that a blog may not be feasible for a company, but there's plenty of other ways that you can rank well in SEO. And again, that's basically, I think that the easiest way to understand it is that you need to create content that your user is searching and that is educational and helpful for them. It's almost like you're ethically creating the content. It shouldn't be anything fake. It should be really good quality information all around. And branding spills over into social media and also into your print marketing that you have. When we talk about branding, it's not just your website. Your branding also is your voice, it's your values, it's all sorts of things. It's fun to work with a company and explain to them how the way that they present themselves on all these different platforms, because there's so many different platforms now, really should be unified, and we should try to have it all have the similar voice, and it keeps it a lot clearer for the families that are going to be working with them.
Brings up another question in my mind. And Christy Copeland, who's a friend of both of ours, we both work with Christy. She's one of the leaders at Third Level now. She always is correcting me in a very nice way. She's so nice. She will tell me, you can't do your website in this color palette and then do Instagram in this because there's no connection to it. So how important is color to a brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think sometimes maybe it's underestimated. If you consider that the first thing that someone may see about your company is your logo. So it could be in your email signature, it could be your profile picture on your email, it's going to be on your website. And those branding colors help identify you and differentiate you from your competition as well. So especially if we're talking about child activity centers, there may be multiple gyms or multiple swim schools in your area. And so your branding to show, if someone searches school-age gymnastics or toddlers gymnastics or even elite gymnastics, there could be multiple gyms that come out from that on their search results. So if you have unified branding that maybe they've seen you at a school fair or they've seen your logo as they drive by on the street, having the branding be unified is really important. And we notice that that's especially important as more and more schools have multiple locations, as maybe franchising becomes a part of the child activity center industry. So let's say you have ABC Swim School of Asheville and ABC Swim School of Charlotte and ABC Swim School of Durham. Those schools may operate and do probably most likely operate a location manager and a location director of operations, but they are still the same company. They are still all under one roof. So they need to have similar branding across the board. And I guess Asheville, Charlotte, Durham isn't a great example. We'd want to use something that maybe towns that are all right next to each other as a better example. But if those social channels have no similar branding at all, it's very difficult for the user to understand that those schools are related, that those gyms are related. And building that really great branding helps create a more robust brand and a more robust company that really helps the user understand who they are. And if they have multiple locations, that's something really fantastic that should also be noticed.
Yeah, I think we notice it in corporate America. It's like you wouldn't want to see a McDonald's that had green arches. I heard a speaker one time saying your brandings work when you don't have to put your name on it to be recognized. Nike's done that, McDonald's, but we as small business entrepreneurs don't always think about the branding side of it that gives longevity. I'm doing a project now where I'm doing value building for businesses to grow their value. One of the key things that is not often thought about is how recognizable is your brand without you. If you build the brand around a person or the founder and you want to sell the business at some point, that brand has to carry on without the founder. With Andy and Swim Consultants, it's like I go to a swim association meeting or conference or whatever, and I look around and anybody in a purple shirt, I assume, is with Swim Consultants. Because Andy, and maybe that's your doing, but Andy is so purposeful about, she's always got a purple shirt, or there's purple in the booth display and there's
Yep.
always purple. So the coloration, I think, means a lot.
It does. Purple is Andy's favorite color, which is why she chose it for Swim Consultant. And without even realizing it, she immediately differentiated herself from the rest of the swimming world, because when you go to those conferences, because it's swimming, it's a sea of blues, all different
Yeah.
kinds of blues, but they're blue everywhere. And so that purple really stands out. It's an interesting choice of branding, but I think it's made a pretty big difference. Sometimes it happens accidentally and you don't have to put as much thought into it. There's so many different elements and levels of branding. Maybe you want to work with somebody who could help you get your website and your social media and all sorts of your branding in line. And I think sometimes it can seem really overwhelming. That's also where my background in sports is super helpful in explaining and managing a big project with branding. You did mention that earlier, and I totally agree. I think that especially in swimming, because it is an individual sport and you're very much on your own. Even at practice, you don't really talk to people very much. Your head's in the water, and there's a ton of goal setting and there's a lot of time management that goes into it. So I think that when we have these big branding projects where I may be working with someone who doesn't know anything about websites, their maybe knowledge of technology is limited, maybe they don't understand the branding, and that's okay, because we want them to be focused on teaching their lessons or managing their staff, which is what they do best. But I think that my background in sports really helps with the management of the projects, because I can break down one really big project into smaller projects. And I think that's a benefit of any athlete, but especially in swimming, where we have these big lofty goals, but there's so many steps along the way that you have to accomplish in order to get there. So I think that's a pretty big help.
That's great. And I want to move off of the website and talk about social media. Let's say a gymnastic club is just starting up, and I assume that they have to have a website. But how far ahead of a grand opening should the marketing decisions be being made?
Christy Copeland, who we mentioned earlier, she's put together a fantastic marketing grand opening timeline, and it explains months and months ahead of what we need to be doing for the grand opening. For social media, it's a really great way to sort of build the hype of a grand opening, but you don't want to start too early, because people will just be waiting and waiting and waiting. A couple months out or 1 month out of doing the grand opening social media post is great. What I have noticed that works really well is if a company maybe is even a year out from opening, I've noticed that they'll post photos of their construction site, which seems pretty silly, but it's actually a really effective way to build the excitement and interest around it. Because if you show this construction site and you're saying, look, look how big this space is. Look, this is where our foam pit is going to be, and this is where the balance beams are going to be, or this is where the big kid pool or the little kid pool is going to be. It's pretty interesting. I saw one school say, look what arrived today, and there were these massive boxes, and then you slide over, right? And they open it up and they were brand new mats. And they were like, we can't wait to have the kids out. And, so you can do some really fun things with that. In addition, social media is a great way that you can start connecting with your community about any kinds of discounts that you're going to be offering for a new school. So sometimes they're saying, if you sign up now before it's open, then you get this discount for the first months or whatever it is of your child enrolling. So the early adopter benefit, I guess. So there's all different ways that social media can certainly help you. It's a great question about timing, because you you don't want to start too early and then everyone's just forgotten about it.
My background is on the equipment side of the sports business. So I work for a big equipment manufacturer. And now, as I'm helping design gyms, one of the things that I tell them that if they can get their logo and their colors selected in advance, now with the advances in printing and printing on vinyl and printing banners, we can build that into the design of the gym, you're marketing to your current clientele. Also, at the Signature Business Workshop, when they were talking about in-facility selfie stations, which
Yeah.
that was fascinating. And I'm trying to tell people, like, pictures are going to be taken of those kids in the gym, if it's just grandma or whoever. If the colors are right, then it's building your marketing plan,
Yeah.
even if you're not doing it. I find the whole thing fascinating. I'm going to ask you to come back on another time because we barely got started. We talked a lot about Christy, and Christy's been on here many times. Christy's like my co-host, but I think it would be fun to get you and Christy both on here, and maybe I shut up a little bit and let you guys go at it. Do you and Christy agree on most things with marketing, or is there any give and take there?
Christy and I, we collaborate on almost everything that we do with Third Level and then also some clients. And we don't really ever disagree on what should be done with marketing. We actually work really well together because she is so strong on the analytical and strategy side of marketing, and I'm stronger on the branding design side of marketing. So the two of us work so well together because we can really lean on each other for the pieces that, she's better at than I am. We just work so well together. And I think that we only met about 3 years ago, but I guess it's 3 years ago now. But I think we just trust each other really well. And we know that each of us has our strengths. And I think we just collaborate really well on all these kinds of projects.
I think that trust is real important, and the trust that your clients have in you, because there's time when we as a business owner say, this really should be black and gray. And you as the consultant is going to shake your head and say, I know you like those colors, but that may not sell. There has to be a trust that we as owners give up a little bit of that control to allow the expert to dig in. This has been wonderful, and I'm sure this is going to create questions. If any of the listeners want to reach out to you with questions or projects or anything, how would they get in touch? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So the best way for them to get in touch with me, if they have any kinds of questions, would be either to send me an email or just sign up for a call. They could set up a call with me with the link that's on my website. My company name is Galenda Media Group. So my name's Galen Broido. And when I moved to Italy, Galen was impossible for the Italians to pronounce. So we came up with a new name, and that was Galenda. And so Galenda Media Group was born from that. So yeah, that's how you can find me.
And I'll put one other teaser just to make sure everybody listens in next time that you're on, because her husband is a professional basketball player, and professional basketball in Italy is fascinating. And next time you're on, we're going to take 5 minutes and have you explain how that works and why you have lived in so many different places as a result. Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being on. This was wonderful.
Absolutely. That would be great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Go out there, build your business, market it, and make it a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to Paradigm Playbook. Explore more at ParadigmPlaybook.com. Want to be a playmaker? Contact StephenJCook.com. Share this episode to spread the word about sports industry opportunities. See you next week.